These troops are given very clear orders.
Then what is the order? Then list it out for us. Be a man, list it out. Did you authorize them to detain or arrest? That is a fundamental issue of democracy. I'm not trying to be a snot here. I'm just trying to get the actual, did you authorize them to do that?
All of these orders and what they're sent there to do are public. They are there
so say it. So say it. Yes or no?
I'd like to.
Please, yes or no?
As I've said time and time again through interruption, they're there to protect law enforcement,
do they have
ICE
the ability
officers
to arrest?
who are trying to do their job, deporting illegals who were allowed in by the previous administration.
So they cannot arrest and detain citizens of the United States, the uniformed military.
As we've stated, if necessary, in their own self-defense, they could temporarily detain and hand over to ICE. But there's no arresting going on. And you know this better than you're trying to play political games. There's no arresting of U.S. personnel.
Of the U.S. military against members of the protest. Have you authorized U.S. military cyber tools?
What happens when the military starts showing up not at foreign borders, but in American cities? That is the real question at the heart of this exchange, and it is why this moment should alarm anyone who cares about democracy, regardless of party.
Senator Slotkin.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Secretary, I said in your hearing, when you had your confirmation hearing, that my biggest concern with you at the helm was the potential use of the military in ways that contradict the Constitution or that taint what I hope we all want, which is an apolitical military. And when I asked you about whether you would accept an order that was actually given to your predecessor, Secretary Esper, Trump's SecDef, to deploy active duty troops against unarmed protesters and to, in Secretary Esper's words, shoot at them, shoot at their legs. You said this was all theoretical. Here we are, a few months later, you've deployed 4,700 troops to Los Angeles and against the wishes of the governor. And my colleague across the aisle was right. It is the first time since 1965 that we have deployed Guard troops without the permission of the governor. In all the instances he laid out, the president had sent in the military to protect protesters, not against the protesters. So you may dismiss it, but I feel like this is a fundamental issue of American democracy. If you love your country and you want an apolitical military, then it should be the last resort, not the first resort in our country to use them. So to get to the non-theoretical, have you authorized the uniformed military to detain or arrest protesters in Los Angeles?
Senator, I would just start by saying you're not a protester if you're throwing concrete
100%.
at law
Arrest those
enforcement
people,
officers.
throw them in the jail, 100%. But what you're doing is something different. Everyone knows this is a political decision, right? So we don't trust that you're using the best interests of the military, certainly, and of democracy on top of that. So have you given the order? That's all I want to know. It's not theoretical. For the U.S. military, not law enforcement. They can arrest all day long. That's their job. Do they have the ability, the uniformed military, to arrest and detain protesters currently today? It's a yes or no thing. Authority.
It's sort of amusing the extent to which the speculation is out there. These troops are given very clear orders.
Then what is the order? Then list it out for us. Be a man. List it out. Did you authorize them to detain or arrest? That is a fundamental issue of democracy. I'm not trying to be a snot here. I'm just trying to get the actual. Did you authorize them to do that?
All of these orders and what they're sent there to do are public. They are there
so
to
say it. So say it. Yes or no?
I'd like to.
Please, yes or no?
As I've said time and time again through interruption, they're there to protect law enforcement,
do they have
ICE
the ability
officers
to arrest?
who are trying to do their job, deporting illegals who were allowed in by the previous administration.
So they cannot arrest and detain citizens of the United States, the uniformed military.
As we've stated, if necessary, in their own self-defense, they could temporarily detain and hand over to ICE. But there's no arresting going on. And you know this better than you're trying to play political games. There's no arresting of U.S. personnel.
Of the U.S. military against members of the protest. Have you authorized U.S. military cyber tools to investigate people participating in these protests? Yes or no?
Certainly in no way that I'd be aware of.
Okay, that's good. I love that answer. That's great. Have you given the order to be able to shoot at unarmed protesters in any way? I'm just asking the question. Don't laugh. Like the whole country. And by the way, my colleagues across the aisle.
What is that based on? What evidence would you have that an order like that has ever been given?
It is based on Donald Trump giving that order to your predecessor, to a Republican Secretary of Defense, who I give a lot of credit to because he didn't accept the order. He had more guts and balls than you because he said,
this isn't about protests or politics on cable news. It's about whether the line separating civilian government from military force is being quietly erased in front of us. If you care about power, accountability, and the future of this country, make sure you subscribe. At its core, this confrontation exposes a fundamental tension in American democracy. The military is designed to defend the nation from external threats, not to manage domestic unrest. Once soldiers become a routine tool for handling civilian dissent, the country moves into dangerous territory. History shows that when leaders normalize military presence at home, it is rarely temporary and rarely neutral. If you want more honest breakdowns like this, subscribe now. The deployment of thousands of troops without a governor's consent is not a small procedural dispute. It signals a shift in who gets to decide when force is appropriate inside the United States. That power has traditionally been restrained for a reason. The founders understood that soldiers trained for combat are not trained for civil liberties, de-escalation, or constitutional nuance. If you believe those distinctions matter, subscribe to the channel. What makes this moment especially troubling is the refusal to give clear, direct answers. When leaders hedge on yes or no questions about arrest authority or use of force, it creates fear, confusion, and mistrust. Democracies depend on transparency, especially when weapons and uniforms are involved. Ambiguity is not safety, it is a warning sign. If you want clarity instead of spin, hit subscribe. An apolitical military is not a slogan, it is a fragile norm that survives only when leaders actively protect it. The moment troops are perceived as serving a political agenda, public trust collapses. Soldiers become symbols of intimidation instead of service, and civilians begin to see their own military as something to fear. That erosion does not heal easily. Subscribe if you want to keep these conversations alive. The comparison to past moments in history matters because those moments taught us hard lessons. Using force against unarmed citizens, even hypothetically, crosses a moral and constitutional boundary. Once that line is crossed, it becomes easier to justify again and again. Power, once tested, rarely retreats on its own. If this concerns you, make sure you subscribe. This exchange also reveals something deeper about leadership. True civilian control of the military requires humility, restraint, and respect for limits. When leaders dismiss concerns as political games instead of addressing them head-on, they weaken the very institutions they claim to defend. Confidence is not deflection. Accountability is not a weakness. Subscribe for more unfiltered analysis. Finally, this is not about loving or hating the military. It is about protecting it from being misused. The fastest way to damage the armed forces is to turn them into tools of domestic control. A democracy survives not by force, but by consent, law, and trust. If you want more deep dives that cut through the noise, subscribe to the channel now.